Hi there. Before Elizabeth Holmes is sentenced, there's going to be sentencing memos filed by both sides. So I thought we'd take a look at one as an example that was filed in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. So if you're new to this channel, please do subscribe, and thank you to all of those of you who have subscribed. Hit that like button, hit the bell notification. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to look at what's in a sentencing memorandum, what the arguments could be. I know they're different crimes. One deals with sex trafficking, Ghislaine Maxwell. The other one deals with wire fraud, Elizabeth Holmes. But we're also going to look at the recommendations, and I thought it might be interesting to look at the sentencing ranges for Ghislaine Maxwell versus Elizabeth Holmes. All right, so again, please do subscribe, hit that like button. Please leave a comment. I want to know what your analysis is, because this video is simply for education and information and simply my opinion, my analysis. And if you want to contribute to supporting me making these videos, I'll put a PayPal link in the description box below the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the sentencing memo that was filed in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and she's scheduled to be sentenced tomorrow. There may be a delay because she's been on suicide watch, so maybe she hasn't been able to prepare for her sentencing hearing. I don't know. We'll find out. But anyway, let's look at the sentencing memo. And Ghislaine Maxwell was also charged and convicted in federal court, so the U.S. sentencing guidelines apply to both Elizabeth Holmes and to Ghislaine Maxwell. So this is an example of a sentencing memorandum that we will likely see by both the government and by Elizabeth Holmes' attorneys. So let's take a look at it. What's in it? And again, this is 55 pages, so I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to point out some of the highlights. All right, so it's the government sentencing memo. All right, so let's take a look at what's in this. So they lay out basically the proof of trial. They also ask for enhancements, leadership enhancement, undue influence enhancement. If you look at paragraph 2, B, and C, I'll get to that, but I just thought I would show you this. All right, so here's a preliminary statement. So what goes in this sentencing memorandum? A preliminary statement. Here they're saying Ghislaine Maxwell played an instrumental role in the horrific sexual abuse of multiple young teenage girls. I mean, this is terrible. It's terrible. As part of the disturbing agreement with Jeffrey Epstein, Maxwell identified, groomed, and abused multiple victims. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted on December 29th in U.S. District Court in New York. She was convicted of 5 of 6 counts relating to sex trafficking, sex conduct with minors. And it was relating to 4 victims and their, quote, sexualized massages with Jeffrey Epstein. So you can go ahead and read through this. Defendant requests a reduced sentence. So what the government has recommended here, and I'm sorry I skipped over this, the government recommended 360 to 660 months of imprisonment. So in other words, the government is recommending 30 to 55 years on those counts. 30 to 55 years. All right, I know Elizabeth Holmes is not facing that much time, but we'll look at her sentencing table as well, okay? The defense is arguing, no, that's not appropriate. It needs to be reduced in light of her punitive, basically her punitive conditions while she was in jail. And the government points out Ghislaine Maxwell has shown no utter lack of remorse, and she's failed to address the conduct that she was charged with. Go ahead and read this. Okay, so they lay out a preliminary statement, and then they do a background, what the case is about. Skip through this, what the charges are. So this is going to be a similar format for the sentencing memorandum for Elizabeth Holmes as well. They also summarize the proof of trial. You can read through this. It's lengthy, so I'm just going to skip through it. It lays out all the evidence to support the crimes. And the judge in this case, she's already made a determination that the verdict was readily supported by the evidence. And she also denied the defense's request to throw out the convictions based on alleged juror misconduct when one of the jurors didn't disclose on a juror questionnaire that they had been abused as a child. So I'm just going to keep skipping through this. Let's see if we can go a little quicker here. All right, so they're also going to get into the pre-sentence report. So in Elizabeth Holmes' sentencing, and with Sunny Balwani if he is convicted, the sentencing procedure, and I did a video on this, you can go ahead and look at it, the sentencing procedure for Elizabeth Holmes, basically what happens is there needs to be a pre-sentence report filed with the court, and that pre-sentence report is due 35 days before the hearing. Elizabeth Holmes' hearing is presently scheduled for September 26th. So if I did my math right, that would be August 21st. By August 21st, we should get the pre-sentence report. And then both sides have 14 days to object. So they need to file their objections by September 5th. And then by September 19th, the probation office has to let the court know whether there's any unresolved objections. Okay? So again, pre-sentence report is due by August 21st, the objections by September 5th, and any resolved objections by September 19th. And then the sentencing hearing is currently scheduled for September 26th. All right, so here's the pre-sentence report and sentencing guidelines. What the probation office in the Ghislaine Maxwell is recommending 20 years in jail, where the government's recommending 30 to 55. That's a huge disparity. Okay, so how does the judge work this out? Well, looking as they state here, the U.S. sentencing guidelines are advisory. They're not mandatory. And if you look at the video I did on calculating Elizabeth Holmes' sentence, you can go, I walk you through all the possible, whether her sentence could be reduced or increased, what sentencing range she's looking at. So they're saying here that the pre-sentence report, the PSR, reflects that the probation office is calculated under the advisory sentencing guidelines of 292 to 365 months based on a total offense level of 40. So I'll show you the sentencing table. That's how they came up with the 20 years, which is what the probation is recommending. The government is recommending 30 to 55. And the reason the government is disagreeing with the probation office is they're saying the court should consider and can consider that there's two additional victims. That's Virginia Roberts and another victim named Melissa. Therefore, you can add 2 more levels and take it from 40 to 42, which puts Ghislaine Maxwell in the 30 to 55 year prison sentence range. Okay, so you can go ahead and read this. So there again, government's recommending level 42. The defense urges the court to adopt a sentencing range of 51 to 63 months. So the defense is asking the court to only sentence Ghislaine Maxwell to 4 or 5 years, not 20 years, not 30 years, okay? And they're saying, the defense is saying that the probation office miscalculated or wrongly calculated the sentencing factors. Okay, again, this is the government's response here. So here's the other thing that's very interesting. In the Ghislaine Maxwell case, they're disputing, the government and the defense are disputing which sentencing manual applies. Does 2004 apply or does 2003 apply? The reason they're arguing that is because there's a little difference in one of the factors whether the court could increase or consider increasing Ghislaine Maxwell's sentence. So they say here they're looking at what was the manual. In other words, what was the date of the last conduct, the alleged last conduct, right? So the defense is saying it was before November 2004. Therefore, the 2004 sentencing manual doesn't apply. I mean, this is crazy. And the government is saying, no, there is plenty of testimony that shows that conduct took place after November 2004. Therefore, the 2004 sentencing guidelines manual is what the judge should rely upon. And they indicate in here the court may not apply the 2020 manual. So you don't apply the current manual. You apply what happened with the conduct, the date of the conduct. So for Elizabeth Holmes, those counts that she was convicted of, I think, are 2014 and 2015. So the court can look at the manuals at that time. But I looked, the sentencing range is the same. Okay, whether or not the factors, the enhance, whether the judge increases or decreases, that depends on what's in the manual of 2014 or 2015. But anyway, this could be a potential argument that defense might bring up. You don't look at 2021, judge. You need to go back and look at the manual that was in effect at the time of the fraudulent conduct that was committed by Elizabeth Holmes. All right, and they're saying here the court can consider other considerations. And again, the last date of the offense of the conviction is the controlling date. And then they get into an argument of whether the court determines the last date of the conduct or whether the jury determines. So the defense wants the jury to decide what's the last date of conduct. What's the last date of the offense? Was it 2004 or was it early 2004 or late 2004? Okay, the government wants the judge to decide, the judge to make that factual call. So you can go ahead and read through this. It's pretty interesting. Sentencing is not straightforward. So, okay, I'm going to skip through. Yeah, well, they get into here in proof. The government is alleging that there is conduct past November 2004 to trigger the judge looking at the 2004 sentencing guidelines because the birth certificate of one of the victims shows that she wasn't going to be 18 until 2005, and she testified she was, 18. So that triggers until March of 2005. So clearly the government is saying the 2004 manual applies. I know you might think this is just, gymnastics, but actually it's important stuff to look at. So the defendant also acknowledges, the government says that there was a message book, I almost said message book seized from the Palm Beach residence, which had 2 messages from one of the victims in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. And one of those messages was dated after the November 2004 cutoff, okay? So you can go ahead and look at this. And again, they're saying the court should apply the 2004 manual. I thought it was interesting in this footnote, and I encourage you to read footnote number 2. The government will bring the message book to sentencing so that the court may examine it if it deems such an assessment necessary. In other words, this message book was not entered in evidence, but the government's going to provide it at sentencing. And they're saying the right to confrontation does not apply to sentencing. So, the defense is arguing that the message book, they don't know if it's authentic or not. They don't know what else is in this message book. But the government wants to use that, along with the birth certificate, along with the testimony of Caroline, to say that the conduct did take place in 2005. Therefore, the manual for 2004 controls. Okay, so back here, the defense, moreover, the court should not credit the defense's claim. So the defense is claiming that Ghislaine Maxwell broke away in 2002. She moved on in 2002. Therefore, the clock should stop at 2002. The judge should not be considering the 2004 memo. And you can read this. And the prosecution basically argues that the, quote, moved on testimony by one of the defendant's witnesses, that Ghislaine Maxwell moved on from Jeffrey Epstein in 2002. The government is arguing here that moved on is an expression that has no legal meaning. That's interesting. And they also point out there's other documentary evidence, flight records that show that the defendant flew with Epstein in 2003, 2004, and 2005. They show that she had a desk in his Palm Beach residence with a household manual that was dated February 14th, 2005. There were travel agency records paid by Epstein for the defendant's flights until 2006, and there were bank records reflecting as of 2007, Epstein had transferred $7.7 million to Ghislaine Maxwell's bank account. Now, I think the defense may argue, okay, but how does that show conspiracy to commit criminal activity? So we'll see what happens in sentencing. And the government is saying the record makes clear is that the defendant remained a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein and continued to profit from their criminal relationship long past 2004. I'm sure the defense is going to dispute that. Okay, so let's get into the enhancements. The government is asking for a 4-point, in other words, increase it 4 levels down, so more prison time, because Ghislaine Maxwell was an organizer or leader of criminal activity. And I addressed this in the Elizabeth Holmes calculating her sentence video, because it could be argued that she was a leader in this conspiracy, so that would enhance her potential sentence. Okay, so what else? I'm going to stream through this here. The enhancement applies even under the defense's interpretation because Maxwell, they're arguing, the government is arguing, she also supervised one other knowing participant. So again, they want a 4-step increase from the base, and I'll get to that in a second. They also want a 2-point increase, so a 2-point increase in the step, because of they're claiming Ghislaine Maxwell unduly influenced a minor to engage in prohibited sexual conduct. So you can go ahead and read through this. I'm going to scroll through this because, all right, now we get to a 5 level. So they want a 4-point for leader, 2-point for undue influence, and 5 for an enhancement under Section 4B1. And that's saying that they met the 3 requirements of the conviction must be of a covered sexual crime. The defendant is not a career offender. She has no prior conduct. And the defendant engaged in a pattern of activity involving prohibited sexual conduct. So you can go ahead and read this. They're saying that, again, the defense is trying to get the court to look at the 2003 guidelines. So footnote 3 here is what the defense is relying on. The defense is arguing that the enhancement doesn't apply to Jane. So adding that enhancement of additional 5 steps, 5 points, shouldn't apply because it says here, the undue influence must occur with the object of having the minor engaged in commercial sexual act. So the defense is arguing that these victims engaging in sexual conduct with Jeffrey Epstein doesn't equal a commercial sexual act. But the government is pointing out that these victims were paid or they were given something of value, which makes it a commercial sexual act. That's an interesting argument. So you can go ahead and read through this. All right, let me see here. Let me get to page. Okay, so sorry, I have to look at my notes here. So I'm going to skip forward because there's a lot. These are all the factual or the arguments regarding the evidence at trial. They're saying there were additional minors provided to Epstein for sexualized massages between 2004 and 2005. And they had message pads. They took messages of when these massages. I'm wondering what else is on those message pads. Is it just Jeffrey Epstein? I realize this case is just about the victims being provided to Jeffrey Epstein. But has anyone asked the question of where did he get all of his money? And how did Ghislaine Maxwell get $7.7 million? Where was he making his money? And was there other people involved here? Or was it just these victims? I mean, were these victims only provided to Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what I think that's what this case is. I mean, that's what this case is about. They're saying there were 32 minor victims identified when the Florida U.S. Attorney's Office investigated regarding regarding the case where Jeffrey Epstein was given a plea deal. They're saying 32 minor victims were identified at that time, and 13 appear on the message pads. Interesting in here. None of the other 30 individuals named in this document have been publicly identified. Those victims retain significant privacy interest, and they do. But are there other people involved here, or is it just Ghislaine was just getting victims for Jeffrey Epstein? Okay, so and I know that may have sounded callous, but it's very tragic what's happened to these women. All right, so just skipping through, you can go ahead and take a look at this. And they're saying the defendant's arguments for a lenient sentence are unpersuasive. They're asking for the court to not impose as much sentence. And they said that she should not be sentenced as if she were Harvey Weinstein. And they also point to, which I thought was interesting, and I'm looking at footnote 8 here, they look at a sentence on a prior case where the defendant was sentenced to 20 years for nonviolent child trafficking. Similar, maybe that could be argued by the defense here. And I think that might be why the probation recommended 20 years, significantly less than what the government is asking for. Okay, so they're talking about the defense wants the judge to not impose as much sentence, to actually make a reduction in the sentencing range because of her punitive jail conditions. She wasn't allowed access, they're saying that these conditions are a far cry from a 23-hour day lockdown experienced by other inmates. And they were often locked in their cells for a significant period of time. But Ghislaine Maxwell was allowed to have exclusive use of a telephone, a TV, a desktop computer, a laptop computer, and a shower. And they're saying the government, her ability to defend herself was never thwarted by her ability to, by the conditions. And they're saying Maxwell received more time to review her discovery than any other inmate. I mean, it looks like she got preferential treatment here. She was permitted to review discovery 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. She had a desktop computer. She was also given extensive access to her attorneys. That's what the government is alleging here, more than any other. She did have to undergo flashlight checks, multiple flashlight, where they would, put the flashlight through the cell to make sure the inmate was there and not in distress. They said it happened at least once per hour. I guess she complained about jail food. She complained about the conditions of her confinement. And they're saying, well, basically she was given preferential and more beneficial conditions than any other inmate. No other inmate received the kind of access to discovery or counsel than the defendant did. In many respects, the defendant's conditions of confinement were preferential and more beneficial than those experienced by other inmates. So the government is arguing this to say, Judge, it wasn't punitive conditions, and her sentence shouldn't be reduced because of that, because of all these things that she got, the computer, the laptop, her own space, her ability to review discovery, etc. And then they also address the alleged death threat. You can go ahead and read this. It was not actually, according to the government, the inmate did not actually threaten Maxwell, is what the government said. You can go ahead and read through this. And then the court also will consider in a sentencing memorandum for Elizabeth Holmes as well as the financial penalties. So in Elizabeth Holmes' case, I think it's $250,000 fine on each one of those counts. So she's facing 4 counts. So I think that, what is that, $1 million in fines? But we'll see what they calculate. In this case, with the Ghislaine Maxwell, it's $250,000 maximum on each count. And the defense is arguing, the government is arguing that totals to $750,000 based on the ones that triggered a fine. So $750,000 fine. And the defense is arguing she doesn't have the money. She doesn't have the money to pay the fine. And they say here, interesting statement, money is a key theme underlying the criminal conduct in this case. Yes, it is. But where did the money come from, is my question. And they talk about, here the defense can't afford the fine. However, the financial information she provided, the government is arguing, at the time that she was asking for bail shows that she was a very wealthy woman. Apparently, there was a Manhattan townhouse that she was given that Jeffrey Epstein bought for her. And they're saying that Ghislaine Maxwell had a worth of $23 million. They also address forfeiture, which Elizabeth Holmes also could be facing. But they're saying there's no property. The government hasn't found any property that's owned solely by Ghislaine Maxwell to seize it as far as forfeiture. Then they also bring up basically restitution for the victims in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and they're saying they're not asking, the government's not asking for restitution because there was a crime victims, the Jeffrey Epstein, the Epstein Victim Compensation Fund. In other words, these victims were provided with monetary compensation or had settlements. So the court does not need to consider any restitution to the victims. Interesting. Okay, and that's the conclusion. So the government is asking for 30 to 55 years. And again, the sentencing guidelines are advisory. They're not mandatory. The judge is the one that makes the call. So probation office says 20 years. Defense says 4 to 5 years. And the government says 30 to 55. So let's take a look at it. I thought you might be interested in this. Let's look at the sentencing guidelines. Now, this is 2004 guidelines. Different than what Elizabeth Holmes, basically the ranges are the same. It just looks different. All right, so for Ghislaine Maxwell, and again, it's dealing with sex crimes, the base level starts at 24. Okay, I'll show you on the next slide here. Elizabeth Holmes doesn't start at 24, but they're going based on all the enhancements that the government wants and probation wants. They go down to level 40, which is the 292 months to 365. That's how probation recommends 20 years. But the government wants level 42. Take it all the way down, 360 months to life. But the maximum they can ask for is 660 months. So that's where you get the 30 to 55 years, if I did my math right. And you see how this is dated November 1st, 2004. That's why there's this big argument about when did the sexual conduct end. Was it before November 1st? Because then 2003 manual applies, and then there's a dispute over one of the enhancements. Or is it the 2004 manual applies where the judge can consider those additional enhancements? All right, so let's look at Elizabeth Holmes. So Elizabeth Holmes is here at level 31 and 35. And again, go look at the video I did if you want, that I did on calculating Elizabeth Holmes' sentence. So let's look at the sentence. And I took the guidelines as of November 1st, 2021. I'm sure the defense is going to argue it's the 2014 or 2015 manuals that apply. But I took a quick peek and it looks like it's the same range. There might be a little difference in enhancements. And you can look at the series of videos I did on whether to reducing her sentence or possibly increasing her sentence. So Elizabeth Holmes is here at 108 months to 135 or 168 months to 210. She's not down here where Ghislaine Maxwell is. So very interesting sentencing memo. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Please hit that like button. And please do subscribe. And if you want to support me making these videos, I'll put a PayPal link in the description box below the video. Hit the bell notification for my upcoming videos. And do let me know what you think. What's your analysis? What do you think? What do you think about this sentencing memo? Do you think some of it could be argued for Elizabeth Holmes? Do you think there could be enhancements or reductions for Elizabeth Holmes? Do you think they're going to be arguing over which sentencing guideline manual applies? So I hope it's interesting, and hit that like button if you like this video, and thank you very much for watching.